Jungle Boogie, Get Down on It, Too Hot, Joanna, Ladies Night, Hollywood Swinger, and Celebration. Sounds like a playlist from Kool and the Gang, right? Before you go Google or download any of the above song titles, Google Robert Kool Bell, bass player, brother tenor saxophone player Ronald Bell, and you will find the ties that bind these two men to the history-making group Kool and the Gang. Today, our featured guest goes far beyond the music of just being cool. We'll learn the story behind the man before he became part of the legendary group Kool and the Gang. We're going to learn about Robert Kool Bell and how he's giving back. And if you stick around long enough, you'll learn how you can help his Kool Kids Foundation and maybe even play a round of golf with Kool and his gang. This episode is brought to you by Talking with Kevin and Son and the People You Should Know, RMK Productions and the 10 United Podcast Network. Our mission is through our power and through our stories is to uplift, through our voices, inspire, share stories, experiences, and perspectives using the framework of teaching, learning, and modeling. Our purpose is very simple, ladies and gentlemen. Hope, HOPE, helping other people every day. And I am so thrilled. I am so happy to be with a wonderful human being. When we talk about history, this is one of our heroes. Introducing to you, ladies and gentlemen, live on Talking with WIT, Kevin and Son, Robert Kool Bell. Welcome, Robert. How you doing?
I'm wonderful, Kevin. How are you?
I'm doing just fine, doing just fine. I hope all is well. I hear that you're in sunny Florida right now, relaxing a little bit. You're on tour. We got a lot to talk about today.
Absolutely.
All right. So let me give for some of our young people that are not familiar. I know they've heard your music because if they've bought anything from Kentucky Fried Chicken, your music has been sampled there. If you've seen any of the movies, it's been sampled there. Pulp Fiction goes back and whatever. But you were born in Youngstown, Ohio. I'm from Dayton, Ohio. OH.
Okay.
All right, IO. He grew up in New Jersey as part of the driving force of one of the most successful groups of all times, influenced by Miles Davis, Mr. Thelonious Monk. You and your brother started out as jazz musicians. Now, what I want you to do right now, Robert, I want you to play around with me just a little bit. I want you to close your eyes and imagine a bottle being washed up on shore, and your cousins, your grandkids, all little people discover the bottle. Inside the bottle, there's a note. They begin to read the story. The view, the notes, and the words that read is the story, the beginning of Robert Bell before he became a member of the history-making group Kool and the Gang. Let us know who Robert was, the young Robert.
Okay. Youngstown, Ohio. Left there in 1960. Grew up on the east side of Youngstown. I also thought I was going to be a mechanic. My grandfather had me under the car when I was like 2 years old. And my grandma said, "Where you got that boy at?" You know? And then as we continued, I built my own motorbike. I took a lawnmower motor and put it on a bicycle frame. And I was just in Youngstown. People see me riding all over town. The north side, south side, east side, west side. But I didn't figure out brakes. So what I would do, I would choke the carburetor. When I got closer to the corner, I would choke the carburetor, and that would slow the bike down. Now I couldn't catch standard brakes and all that stuff. I mean, I was only 8, 9 years old, you know. And started there. My grandmother played a little piano. My uncles were into music. My Uncle Odie, he was into jazz, et cetera, et cetera. And at that time, Motown was popular. We used to listen to Motown. We used to go see little Stevie Wonder downtown and a roller rink downtown. They had a couple of flights down there now and then. We had to go out the back window, but that was Youngstown. And so that's how it started. And then my mother's sister came in to visit us out of New York. And when she came, she said, "Well, why are you living like this?" She told her sister, that's my mother. We lived on Cow Street on the south side. On Cow Street, we had a board with 2 buckets on the bed. The refrigerator was downstairs because we didn't have one. Okay? And she said, "I gotta get you out of here." So my mother's sister, we all got in station wagon, and all that we owned was in the back of that station wagon. And we traveled to New York. We went to Queens, and my mother had another sister who lived in Jersey City. Matter of fact, on that same corner, there's a street now called the Kool Way. We have a street name after us.
All right.
And then my mother went and she secured a job, and then she brought her other siblings over to Jersey City. And that's kind of like when we started. 4 years after that's when we formed the group, the Jazziacs. Now the Jazziacs, my brother was into John Coltrane, and Dennis was in Cannibal Adderley. I listened to Ron Carter. So that was our first group in 1964, the Jazziacs. And then we got involved in Jersey City. There was an organization called the Soul Town Review. And they wanted to be like the Motown Review. So we became the backup band for the Soul Town Review. So it was called the Soul Town Band. And we would have to learn these Motown songs, okay? Because they had their own little Stevie Wonder, their own Temptation, and we had to learn all these songs. And we would do that show like maybe twice a month. And then we moved on. When we left that organization, we formed a group called Kool and the Flames. Okay, that was a nickname that I picked up. Called myself Robert Kool Bell. So Kool and the Flames, we were kind of like doing our own thing at that time, and we were taking some of the stuff we played when we were backing up the Soul Town Review, and we created our sound. We ran into a problem because you had James Brown and the Famous Flames. So our first manager and producer said, "We can't use that. We don't want to have a problem with the Godfather." So, okay, what should we call ourselves? I said, "What about Kool and the Gang?" I said, "Hey, that works." Because he said to his home, we came up with all type of names, none of them worked. So let's call ourselves Kool and the Gang. First record came out in 1969. Single, Kool and the Gang, album, Kool and the Gang. And that was the beginning of Kool and the Gang.
Huh. That's an amazing story. And to be Robert Kool Bell, that's I know in my neighborhood, when you got a nickname, it was a term of endearment and acceptance in the neighborhood. But Kool and the Gang had a very distinct sound. It had a horn section that was second to none, had the cool bass, which you played, that brought on the funk, and then it had a synthesized part of it. Tell our viewers how you developed that signature sound as we know it today.
Well, I mean, after the first record, an album in 1969, we started to put together songs that we wrote, and also we played songs that we covered, like Since I Lost My Baby. We did an instrumental version of that. And then we had songs like Chocolate Buttermilk. People said, "What the hell is Chocolate Buttermilk?" But it was a funky track, and we just called it Chocolate Buttermilk. And then we had another one on that album called Raw Hamburgers. What's that about? Well, hamburgers, buttermilk, funk.
There you go.
So we were just coming up with all kinds of different names. Sea of Tranquility. Sea of Tranquility is a song that D'Angelo did. He had a big record for us. He just sang over the track. We had songs like Breeze and Soul. And then we moved on to songs like Funky Granny. My brother was doing a voice like he was a Funky Granny because we had Funky Man. After Funky Man came Funky Granny. And then we had another song called NT. Now, how that song became NT was because we didn't have a title. So we're gonna call this song. We had no title, it's called NT, no title. Now the drums, I was told, on NT is one of the most sampled drum tracks to hip hop. I didn't know all this. In fact, I didn't even know that we had 1,800 samples. Questlove broke it down. Because James Brown used to say, well, yeah, Kool Gang, they're number 2. I'm number 1. I'm the number 1 sample band and sample the samples. So we did the homework. They said, well, Mr. Brown, maybe you were number 1. Kool Gang is number 1 now. Now, I think that a lot of that sampling happened because we didn't have lead singers. Our lead singers was horns at that time, Spike Mickens, Dennis Thomas, and my brother, Ronald Kool Bell. So when a rapper was listening to our music, there was no vocals in the way. So it was just the raw music. Oh, I like that guitar line. Oh, I like that drum sound. Let me grab that. Oh, let me grab a piece of the bass. Let me grab a piece of the horn riff. And I think that had a lot to do with us becoming sampled so much. We did the soundtrack for The Last Poets. The Last Poets used 4 of our songs, and one of them was a big song for them. And so that's how it started developing, I think, in the world of hip hop. Now, on the other side of the fence, we had songs like Funky Stuff, Jungle Boogie, Hollywood Swingin', Summer Madness, Open Sesame. Getting back to that particular album called Wild and Peaceful, the record company came to us and said, hey, you guys are doing okay. You got territorial hits, maybe in Philadelphia, Washington, Connecticut. But he said, but you guys need a big hit. So we said, well, what are you talking about? He said, there's this song called Soul Makusa. And the producer, I don't remember his name right now, the producer that particular song with the big record. So we met with him one time. And we told the record company, no, that's not working. So we went into the studio downtown in the village called Baggies. We were in there around 8 o'clock in the morning, and we came out of there midnight. We created Funky Stuff, Jungle Boogie, and Hollywood Swingin'. No more problems from the record company. Top 5 pop, no, Funky Stuff was number 1 R&B for 7 weeks. So that's where we were going.
Yes, and is that when JT entered the group as your lead vocalist?
He came a little later. He came a little later.
All right. Well,
go ahead.
No, what I was going to say, you know, the one amazing thing that was happening, because like I said, I grew up with a lot of the groups that you've mentioned. I've met Mr. James Brown. I was the personal trainer for Gladys Knight. I grew up with Ohio Players. Lakeside, William and Thomas Shelby were my next door neighbors. Roger Troutman lived around the corner from us. The Zap Band was in 5 miles within the radius. We used to watch them playing in the background, in their backyards. But you were one, Kool and the Gang was one of the few groups that did something that no other group could do. You actually kicked down the doors to crossing over. You, with Lady Night and being one of the featured disco theme songs, I think that's the trademark of disco, Ladies Night. Talk to us about how crossing over into disco, going from funk to R&B to soul and whatever, how did that affect Kool and the Gang and your image?
Well, after those songs I mentioned, Jungle Boogie, Funky Style, Hollywood Swing. Then came Summer Madness. Now that's, you mentioned something about the synthesizer.
Yeah.
Summer Madness, because there was a song called "You Don't Have to Change."
Right.
At the end of that song, there's a vamp there, and my brother was in the studio. He had just got the synthesizer,
Right.
and he was experimenting. He stayed in there all night. So when we came back to the studio, he said, "Man, I'm gonna play something for you guys." So he played the track. He did a solo over the vamp of "You Don't Have to Change," because Spike wrote the song "You Don't Have to Change," and another guy, Alton Taylor. And so Spike said, "Hmm." He said, "Well, what are we gonna call this?" And Spike said, "Let's call it Summer Madness because it's the summertime when we did it." Not knowing that Summer Madness is going to become the type of song it became. And you know, it's in the Rocky movie. That's Will Smith.
Will Smith and Jazzy Jeff did it. It made them stars.
He went to #1 platinum record. Then he moved on to become a movie star.
Yeah, I know.
Summer Madness. Okay. So now things were changing out there in the industry. We were out on tour with the Jackson 5 at the time. And you know this name. Dick Griffey was doing the tour. Solon Records.
Right.
So Dick came up to us and said, "Listen, you guys are doing all right out there." He said, "But you know what?" We said, "What?" "I think you need a lead singer." We said, "Well, you know, lead singer." We thought about it. And then said, well, the Commodores had Lionel Richie, Earth, Wind and Fire, Maurice White, Philip Bailey. Of course, Michael Jackson went on to do solo. He was on tour with them anyway. So that's when we decided to make that move. Now, during that time, it was an anti-disco movement going on. They were burning records in Chicago, disco sucks, and all kinds of crazy stuff. So when we met JT, we were recording at a studio called the House of Music. And the owner of the House of Music knew JT. Also, Diodalo was recording there. Frankie Valli was recording there, House of Music. So JT came over. So my brother said, "Well, I'm gonna play some jazz progressions, sing through that." He did. He said, "I'm gonna play some funk, sing through that." He did. And then my brother said, "You sound like a young Nat King Cole." Now, we didn't know that we were gonna have a song called "Too Hot."
Right.
Okay. You know, I gotta go back to the Lady Night story. I'm hanging out in New York, my wife and I. We're hanging out at Regine's in Studio 54. And during the weekend, there was a ladies' night. So I went back to the guys and said, "Hey, I got the perfect title for our first single." They said, "What?" I said, "Ladies' Night." And my brother said, "Wow, they got one of those all over the world." So George Brown came up with the track. And he was walking down the street on Fifth Avenue. And he was noticing how people were walking. It was like, dun, 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 dun. I came up with the bass line, what he was interpreting. We did the record. Frankie Crocker broke the record in New York, and the rest was history.
Yes, 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 it was. It was
We crossed over because you just asked about crossing over.
right.
That was everywhere.
And it's still popular today.
Yeah.
Still one of the biggest hits. It's being sampled all over the world. Now, Mr. Kool Bell, you know, we know the successes. Google says it all the time, whatever. But I also know that, you know, from personal experience of listening to the Temptations, David Ruffin, and Gladys, and you know some of the others, that it all wasn't smooth sailing. There's some ups and downs in the music business. You know, every day's not sunshine. During the time that you guys started out, there were places because of the color of your skin you couldn't play. There were groups that were being destroyed because of drugs and alcohol. If it's okay with you to share, because Kool and the Gang seems tight. How did you guys avoid or get out of harm's way of not having to experience, if you did, any of those things that normally would have broken a group, but you guys stayed strong and steady? How did you guys overcome the obstacles of the pillars of being successful?
Well, our parents used to always tell us, you know, George's mother, my mother, Dennis's mother, Spike's mother. She said, they used to tell us, whatever you do, stick together, stay together. They said, if you have problems, try to work those problems out. Talking about the original members.
Right.
And we had problems, but we was able to work it out. We listened to what Mama said at the time. But most of us, our mothers was around. Our fathers wasn't around that much. It was the mothers. And that kept us strong. So when we ever had a problem, we would work it out. And that's how we made it all the way up to today. Talking about the original man. Now, of course, when JT joined the band, he was with us for about 10 years. And he had some issues, you know, with the management and things that were going on. And then, you know, he wanted to be a Lionel Richie or, you know, Stevie. He wanted to go solo.
Right.
I told him, JT, you can do that, but you don't have to leave the group to do that. Anyway, you know, something came up. He got upset with the management. So he left.
Yeah, you know, that was the same plight of the lead singer for the Spinners and some other groups and whatever. And but the thing that really baffles me, all right, many groups can't say this. Kool and the Gang, you guys are a brand. You are a label. You are a marketing machine. You know, you have, correct me if I'm wrong, your name is actually the first name to appear in Youngstown, Ohio, on the walk, what is it? Sidewalk Walk of Fame or something like that? Youngstown.
You know, because see, Jersey City, we got a street name after
Right.
us. And we were also inducted into the New Jersey Hall of Fame. But I said, well, I'm from Youngstown, I'm a Buckeye. I need my town to do something because people didn't really know about Youngstown.
Right.
They Kool and Gang, Jersey. Some people said Philadelphia because we recorded a lot in Philadelphia.
Right.
So it was a blessing to come back to Youngstown and to be honored. And it was Youngstown's first Walk of Fame. Now we are in the Hollywood Walk of Fame out in California. Took us a long time to get there. We even wrote a song about it. Hollywood Swinging. We finally made it. But I feel really good about my hometown, Youngstown. Here's the boy that was riding around town and more like 10 years old. Here's the boys that went New York, New Jersey. Everything we owned was the back of a station wagon, you know. But we came from Youngstown, Buckeyes.
All right. But answer me this. With all of your success, all of your accolades, having a star on the Walk of Fame in Youngstown, Ohio, I worked 5 years in Cleveland, Ohio. They built a beautiful building called the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Right.
I don't see Kool and the Gang's name in there. What's wrong with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Tell me.
I wish I knew. They have a display. They have a display in there. They got my guitar, the drums, and everything. They have all that in there. But we haven't been inducted. I mean, come on. I mean, we did 48 shows with Van Halen. We played 10 shows with Kid Rock. We played with Meatloaf, Dire Straits. It goes on and on. Why in the hell are we not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
You guys are the only group. I mean, Kool and the Gang is the only group, when you talk about every genre of music, that you have a song that is showcased, featured, sampled in that group. And I don't know what's wrong with the people that are Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but I'm going to tell you, to my listeners, we need to start making some noise. We need to start writing some letters. We need to be texting people. We need to be, I don't know what we need to do, stand out in front of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and do a marathon of Kool and the Gang until they recognize Kool and the Gang should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Now, with that said, all right, we've told a little bit of the story about Kool and the Gang, and there's more to it. Robert Kool Bell, great name. I love that name. I wish my parents had given me a name other than Sir Philip Kevin McLemore. But
That
Kool,
sounds great to me, man. Sir Philip.
yes, yes. Well, maybe I get recognized after this interview. But how do people reach you? How do they get in touch with you?
Well, I mean, for Kool and the Gang, it's koolandthegang.com. We also have, I guess you see in the background, the coolchampagne.com. And we also have the Kool Kids Foundation.
All right. And and with that said, for those of you that are listening, you can go to his social media page and Instagram as at Mr. Robert Kool Bell, at Mr. Robert Kool Bell. Instagram. His Facebook is Robert Kool Bell on there. The other thing is too, now very few celebrities use their superpowers as celebrities to give back to the community. Now, I know there's some personal hardship that has happened to your life. Ronald is no longer with us, and rest in peace. And my condolences to him. And I know that's a big part of life, being part of a band. But also you and your wife, and she is also no longer with us, and rest in peace. I'm not going to try to pronounce her name because I don't want to screw it up. I'll leave you to that. Will you please explain to our listeners to give us some information on how the Kool Kids Foundation started, why you are raising funds for this foundation, and then we'll talk about your celebrity golf tournament, and how people can get involved and how people can participate. The golf tournament is July 11th, Tuesday in New Jersey. I think is it still at the Cedar Hill Golf Country Club?
Yes, it is, yeah.
And that's 100 Walnut Street in Livingston, New Jersey. I don't know what the tee time is. I'm sure you're going to give us all that, but give us the beginning conversation of why you're giving back, why it's important to give back.
Well, my wife came to me and she said, well, why we don't have music in schools anymore? And I said, well, that's a good question. Because when I was coming up, grammar school, they had music classes. And then if you want to learn how to play a violin or trumpet or some of the instruments in PS22 in Jersey City, that was available. So, because I went to that and I tried the violin, didn't like it. Cello, didn't like it. Even the mellophone, didn't like it. But that led me to becoming a bass player. So she was saying that, why? I said, well, she wanted to start something to try to bring music back into the schools. And she called it the Kool Kids Foundation. Now, I did a tour several years ago. It was sponsored by Cherry Coke. And the theme of the tour was, it's cool to stay in school. Cherry Coke financed that. I mean, sponsored that. We did about 40 cities around the country. We were in Oklahoma. And these four guys came up to us because, we would do meet and greets. They came up to us and they said, well, I'm doing good in school. I ain't playing hookers in school and whatever. He said, I want to sing a song for you. All four said that. I want to sing a song. So they did some acapella stuff. And my cousin and I said, hey, they sound pretty good. So we sent them to New York to my other cousin. We all Buckeyes. My cousin Adele, my cousin Royal, and we rehearsed the school. And he came up with a name for the school, Color Me Bad. Color Me Bad was in the movie New Jack City. John Records sign, Color Me Bad. We didn't put the pictures on the front of the album cover because we didn't want to do that. We just wanted the people to listen and think and find out what was they think. They had big records after that. And that was all about the whole school thing. Also to the Kool Kids Foundation, give a kid a chance, and that's what it's about. The fundraisers, what we're doing now, I have to say that my son, you got to interview him because he's pretty much one of my son Hakeem, who's a DJ now. We call him Prince Hakeem.
All right.
And a guy by the name of Mark Goldberg. Now, Mark Goldberg's also doing O.J. Anderson. Now, he's been doing this for almost 10 years. So O.J. Anderson been helping us out, supporting ours. And it's doing pretty good. We gave some keyboards out to one school, different instruments to the schools. And that's what Kool Kids is about. We have had some friends because Chris Tucker, he's been there having fun. I went to his foundation, his fundraiser. He has another one coming up in August. Lawrence Taylor just had one in Atlanta. Lawrence Taylor pops up. Ja Rule, and a lot of the ball players who O.J. Anderson does. So it's been great. So the next one's going to be on the 11th, coming up Cedar Grove.
All right, and this is the 4th annual golf tournament, correct? All right, and it's surprising when I told people I was interviewing the Kool of Kool and the Gang. It was said to me, I thought you didn't interview celebrities. I said, no, you misunderstood. I only talk to people that are giving back, that are returning something back to the community, which the Kool Foundation, and my brother Leroy speaks really highly of you. He was the road manager for Ohio Players. He said, you may not remember him, but I've got neighbors, Mark Brown, that plays in a group called Touch, that's down the road from you in Las Vegas. Treasure, that's the name of his group, Treasure. I got to get that right. And I want to thank Cecil Willingham for making the introduction and connecting me to you. So there's big props. And for those of you that want to know more about the Kool Kids Foundation, go to www.koolkidsfoundation.com, and you can learn how to donate, how to participate. I will tell you myself, anything that you need from me, books or anything else, you call Mr. Kool, I'll be there. And for those of you that are listening, this is the cause that you need to get behind. They are giving kids, they're raising money to give instruments to kids and keep kids off the street and teaching them and giving them an opportunity to learn music itself. It's hard to pull a trigger when you're dancing to a beat of your own song. It's hard to feel bad about yourself when your music makes you happy and you're sharing that with someone else. It's almost virtually impossible in order to be depressed when your vocals can be put to a soundtrack that can change the world. Celebration, celebration. That is the theme song that has been played over and over again. NFL games, NBA games. I can't think of a venue that we've celebrated, even coming back from Iran, they played Celebration. So you're talking about crossing over. Mr. Bell, Mr. Kool Bell. I always ask this of 99% of all of our guests. And it's hard for me to ask you this question because you seem to have it all. I know I'm going to have another interview with you because I want to talk about, not many people that look like us have our own champagne. There's a story behind that. I can't wait to do that. And I want to have a whole show about how to build a brand, how to run a business when you are already a business and be successful and maintain momentum. But this is a big ask, ASK. If you had one wish or one dream or one ask that could come true, and the reason why I'm asking you this, because I'm one of those people that I'm not looking for 1 million people to follow me or to like or whatever. I surround myself with a very unique group of people that have a higher call to action. We don't drive by an accident, we stop and help. And there's someone that's going to be listening to this that will share this interview with someone that can make something happen. If you had one ask, ASK, and you could put it out in the world and someone can grant you that wish, what would your ask be?
I would say world unity. When my brother passed, he was working on an album called Perfect Union. He had another song on the album called Pursuit of Happiness. When Biden ran for president, when he was nominated, he played the song Celebration. When he won, he played the song Celebration. But he quoted from the Constitution about world peace and about the perfect union. One day, God willing, that's what I would ask. Now, that's a hard thing to ask for because you can have wars and wars and wars and people. Look at COVID. Took out about what, 1 million people?
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, one day, will there ever be unity? Just one time in this world? That's it.
That is a very big ask. And I would say to our listeners, understand what Mr. Robert Kool Bell just asked. And understand this, the only way that we are ever going to be unified, if we find value in the preservation of just being good human beings. If we find value in allowing an individual to be who he or she or they or want to be, no matter what labels we are, that we put upon ourselves, the only way we're going to be unified if we just learn to get along. Mr. Robert Kool Bell, I just want to thank you. It's my honor, my privilege to have this part of my career to be christened by such a wonderful, giving, talented individual. A friend of mine told me never to talk about your personal experience when you have someone else on your show. But, I've been on stage with you when I was a kid. JT brought me on to sing one of his songs one day. I just gotten released from football and I was dancing. And you know how you give the mic to someone, you're hoping they can't sing? JT was surprised. So you're one of my favorite people. You're one of my favorite groups. I can't wait to have you back on to talk about your own brand of champagne. Not many of us that look like us has our own brand of champagne. Again, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to get in touch with Robert Kool Bell, you can reach him on Instagram at Mr.RobertKoolBell or on his Facebook page of the same name. If you want to learn more about the Kool Kids Foundation and how to donate, go to kidskoolfoundation.com. It's www.koolkidsfoundation. And if you're in the New Jersey area, you can be a participant, be there on tea time, July 11th, at the Cedar Hill Golf and Country Club, located at 100 Walnut Street in Livingston, New Jersey. Is there anything you want to leave to our young listeners? Someone that's just picked up an instrument, someone that wants to put instrument, or someone that doesn't believe they can play an instrument, or someone that has a song they'd like to share with Mr. Robert Kool Bell?
Well, I would say that work hard. I mean, the music business is not an easy business. It has its hills and valleys. But if you're sincere and really want to be successful, you have to keep pushing. Because that's not easy to say. Because somebody can say, "Well, I've been pushing for 20 years. I ain't made it yet." But don't give up, because just because we've been together. Next year we're celebrating 60 years, but we have had hills and valleys too. Not having proper management, not knowing more about publishing and writing, and then you got to make sure you pay your taxes. They get half. You got to pay your taxes. But the main thing is be strong, stay strong. And I would pray that, we wrote a song at one time, and it was called "What Would the World Be Like Without Music?" Google it. And what would the world be like without music? I think music plays a role. A lot of times people go to a good concert, oh, yeah, and they go out on the street and do the same thing again. Just for that one, you capture them, and then they're out there on the block again.
I totally agree with you, Mr. Bell. I've always said we should settle our differences either by sport, not blood. we should settle our differences by, the way it used to be. Remember the battles of the bands?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we
Wildfires, yeah, definitely.
Yep, we should settle dance-offs, whatever, anything but drawing blood or taking the life of another human being in order to preserve the economics of another human being. We have covered so much information here, and I hope to our listeners that you have enjoyed this episode of Talking Wit, WIT, Kevin and Son. And if you like what you've heard, I've asked you to share it. If you really enjoyed it, go to RMK Productions and Network on our YouTube page and subscribe and follow. If you want more information, in order to be a guest on here, and I'm hoping, Mr. Bell, you have an open seat on here. 90% of the guests we have are based on referrals. So the only way that I know I'm doing a great job if one of your friends and family shows up on the other side of the mic. And over 200 episodes, I think I'm doing pretty good with creating those relationships. But if someone wants to have someone come on the show, or they have a story to tell, or they're a person that we should know, go to info@rmkproductions.org, or you can reach me directly, and I'll give out my number, 610-212-9870. Robert. My grandfather always said that when you get to a point in your life and you can help someone else, your duty to do so. He said, reach one, teach one, and we'll fade the black. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And Mr. Robert Kool Bell, he is so cool. And that is the end of the show. We'll fade the black.